In the last 5 years, I would say that Fujifilm has gone from this niche brand to a real contender in the imaging space. Cameras like the X-T3, GFX50S, and especially X100V have all given the company these little inflection points where they just start to get more traction and more mind share amongst creators of all kinds. And with the Fujifilm X-H2s, the company's betting on another one of those inflection points to carry them into the next generation of products. So I've spent 5 months with this camera, both the pre-production and the official shipping model. And with this video, I just want to answer two simple questions. How good is it? And who's it meant for? If it's your first time here, my name is Gajan. I am a photographer and director based out of Toronto, and I get to travel the world and tell compelling stories through my photography and cinematography. The goal of this channel is to share that journey with you, get you excited to go out and create, and of course, give you my honest thoughts on the equipment we get to test and use. Photography on the X-H2s is a familiar experience. It's noticeably bigger than an X-T4 or an XS10 from Fujifilm, but it's comfortable, just feels nice in the hand. And when you start capturing with it, it feels like you're behind the wheel of a supercar. There's a 5.76 million dot viewfinder on the back, and when you're looking through it, it feels like you're viewing it through hyper reality. That 120 frames refresh rate on this thing, it just makes you feel closer to your imagery. Now, I spent countless hours looking over the images and looking at the results of this camera, and I've come to the belief that with respect to photography, there's two improvements. One big improvement and one smaller but noticeable improvement. The big improvement here is how fast the camera is, how quick it is to acquire focus, to shoot images, to process them, and to allow you to keep shooting, to keep working. I've spoken about this in previous videos and I have more examples shown here. This lens competes with the best of them. It is accurate, and when you know how to tune the settings for the work that you're capturing, it is something that you can rely on. And I've been able to rely on it in a way that I just couldn't with my X Pro 3, where I'm interjecting a lot less often and correcting its behavior. I'm also well aware that some people had issues with pre-production models. I think that's why you call them pre-production models. When you actually spend time with this thing and you understand how it works and you tune the settings, again, for the work that you're capturing, which doesn't take a lot of work, this camera, for the first time ever, sits in that same class as a Canon R5 and Sony a7 IV in terms of autofocus accuracy. It sits in that same tier, and that's not something that I believed before. I always thought they were a noticeable step behind, so this is a big win for them. If I'm going to split hairs, and you're gonna force me to rank them, I believe the Sony a7 IV is still the best one, there's noticeable situations where it just outperforms, right? And there's a certain stickiness to the autofocus and the results that you're getting. But the Fujifilm, I mean, there were situations where it was outperforming the Canon cameras we had and more reliable than them in select environments. But for the most part, they're just right there. So I've shared a lot on that, and I'm gonna echo that same thing again, because in the environments we're using them and how we're shooting and how we're pushing these things, it now sits in that top tier with respect to autofocus. One smaller improvement is the image quality. When I was actually going through the raw files, I found that it seemed to have a little bit better clarity to them. I even tried turning down sharpness and all these kinds of settings just to make sure I wasn't being fooled here, but it seems like the images just have a little bit better, I guess, resolving to them than images taken on the X-T3 and X-T4. I was hoping to see actually a better improvement in dynamic range, especially with all the great results we were getting for video. I thought maybe the photography here, we get better dynamic range and tonality to them, and that doesn't seem to be the case. It seems to be comparable to an X-T3 and X-T4, but that also might just be my expectations. Collectively, it's something that gives you comparable results that you would have expected on an X-T3 and X-T4, but just much faster and with much more accuracy. As a photography tool, this thing just brought so much to the table. I mean, we're talking about up to 40 frames per second continuous shooting, up to 7 stops of image stabilization, great noise response all the way through 6400 ISO. Collectively, it just makes for a great photography experience. And That's the premium that you're paying for this thing, because it now sits at a price point higher than an X-T4, XS10, X-T3. And you have to understand, like, that's what you're investing in. With any one of these cameras, you can probably get the same photo, the same end result. How you get there is going to be different from product to product. And with respect to the X-H2s, it's probably going to give you the best experience in terms of getting that shot. And if you ask me, I think this is just a great thing overall. You have a lengthening of the products that Fujifilm has available, and you can pick the one that best suits your needs. And it's, you know, safe to assume that this new flagship, some of that technology and advancements is going to start to trickle down into newer products, you know, in the months and years to come. Now, I'll talk about video, but I also want to mention something here in case it is your first time watching. These reviews that I put together are more about the experience of using a product for an extended period of time and using it in real world environments with, you know, stakes on the line. If you're looking for the rundown of the specs and how I feel about the ports and all that kind of stuff, I save all of that stuff for the first impressions. Not that they're boring videos, we throw a lot of effort into them. It's just something that is less opinionated. These reviews, they are my opinions after using things for an extended period of time and where I've landed as a user. Look, you can do amazing things with this camera that you just can't do with other cameras, you know, that are at this price point, and even some that are above this price point. The 6.2K open gate recording is a killer feature to have. The dynamic range that you can have when you expose properly feels like witchcraft at times. The noise response, where you can take the footage and clean the noise very easily, I think because of the sensor that they're using, or leave it in for a film-like look. This is also really cool that I don't think a lot of people are talking about and appreciating. All of this together just makes for a very powerful and compact video solution. I went on to rig this thing out, and there's a video dedicated to that where we start to use it and build it out for professional, high-end, you know, commercial work. And this is where I start to have the opposite feeling as I did for photography, where I found that the experience to get the results I was looking for, we had to figure out some workarounds, and there were some challenges. And I'll talk about it in the next segment, but the results were just noticeably better than what you can get with previous generations of Fujifilm products. And I think this is also worth mentioning, like, we capture a lot of subjects with all kinds of colors in their skin, and this is one of the few cameras that respects that gives you the option to really bring that tonality to life in your videos. That's something that should not be ignored. It should be expected from cameras at this price point and even lower. You can pair the X-H2s with vintage lenses, or what I did, the Siryu 24mm lens, the anamorphic lens that they have, and just get unique things that otherwise would have been challenging on previous cameras and previous products, right? Yes, it doesn't have a D-squeeze feature in camera, not at the moment, but at least you can get the ingredients to make some great material. So with that, let's talk about how this camera can get better. If you know me by now, you know I love my Fujifilm products, and I have a ton of them in my personal collection for the work that I do. And that is why I feel like it's my civic duty to hold them to a higher standard than any of the other brands I might talk about on this channel or another. It's like rooting for your home team. You love them and you just want them to be better. The fact that this camera didn't ship with anamorphic D-squeeze, waveform, dual zebras, shutter angle, false color, in my eyes, it feels disrespectful. You know, it's just not an oversight, because it's well known that people inside and outside Fujifilm, professionals, have been asking for these kinds of features. So to release a product and position it in the marketing as this powerful independent filmmaking tool and not have these, I would say, essential features, even a collection of them, I just can't help but feel like it's disrespectful. My hope is that this gets rolled out in future updates so we can bolster this camera and make it easier to get a great result in the moment. This is the thing I was alluding to earlier, where, you can get phenomenal results, but to get there, you have to put in more work as the user. Whereas if you had things like waveforms, false color, dual zebras, you can use the mathematics, the science to get results, get good results. No, get great results faster and more accurately. These are things that I've raised to them, not just after this product was announced. So, how can I give them a pass on this? What I will say though, Fuji has a pretty good history of updating their products and integrating useful features. My hope is that they listen to the user base, especially people that are, buying and investing in this thing, that they start to roll out these features to make the user experience much better. Further, I would love to see some other features come to this thing, like proxy recording and other formats, and not just ProRes and its massive file sizes. I would also like to see deeper control of custom profiles, where a lot of other camera settings can be saved to a custom profile. And I would love them to take the road of RED cameras and just have a simpler video setting where you can choose the aspect ratio, the frame rate, and then just choose good, better, best. And the camera will decide what bitrate it should record at. I think that would just make for overall a better user experience. Now, there's some other features that you can't fix with software, right? I wish that it still had the SCM focus selector tool on this thing. I wish that the rear command dial, it still had the ability to push in and, have a custom function assigned to it, like, an extra record button. And probably the most egregious, okay, it's not the most egregious, but the battery door. On the X-T4, there was a rubber flap that you can open for a dummy battery for the cable to pass through. On this one, it's not on the door anymore, it's on the side, and it doesn't seem to be wide enough to fit a cable for a dummy battery. So you actually can't close the battery door if you're using a dummy battery. I haven't tested every dummy battery. Maybe there's one that works with this, but so far I haven't been able to close the battery door when using this rigged out with a dummy battery. That's an oversight. Now, my last plea for Fujifilm is to just have more transparency if you're gonna be competing in the video space, and just do it in a way, that the companies like ARRI, RED, and even Panasonic and Sony's Venice division, the way that they approach this level of transparency, where they're talking about the science, they're talking about, how to leverage the ISO and when to use them. They have regular workshops and tutorials and free lessons on how to best manage the pipeline with the footage, how to best take advantage of the files and the color and to get the results that you're looking for. This is like almost entirely absent in the Fujifilm space. So that's my challenge to them, is to just bring more transparency here, so users are empowered with information to get the best results, which ultimately I think benefits Fujifilm the most. You might not see it on the bottom line, but when you have more people educated on knowing how to get the best results, and they can produce the best results, and they can then share that messaging, Fujifilm stands to win out. Yeah, there's a lot of things I put in here, but I say it out of love. I say it out of genuine love because I want to see the brand get better and better and ultimately benefit users. How good is this camera? The short answer is really good. It just really performs. That 26 megapixel BSI stack sensor is fast, is accurate, and delivers great results. When you're using it for photography, it just feels like a powerful tool at a fraction of the size of your standard DSLR. Again, it just feels like a major advancement if you are coming from a DSLR. And then you look into the fact that it has the 7 custom profile modes, and you can attribute film simulations and custom profiles. It's a camera that starts to work for you. Yes, it doesn't have the retro styling, but when you're in the professional environment, when you're more, results oriented, it is a layout that benefits that kind of creator and makes for a great user experience for that kind of work. The good thing is that if you don't like that setup, Fujifilm has other options available that are more retro in style. So it's great to have something that sits at a higher tier, well above an XS10, and is designed in a way for that creator that is more results oriented. With respect to video, Fujifilm has gotten the hard part right. They know how to give you great files to work with, great footage. especially when you know how to expose properly. But there are some challenges to figure out. So what I'll say is that if you're looking at the market, look at where you're capturing, what your environment is like. If you're in unpredictable, changing light situations, maybe you're going to the bride's house, the groom's house, and then going to an outdoor wedding. Maybe you're shooting, documentaries in really low light situations, and this kind of unpredictable nature surrounds you. You might be better off going with a Sony solution that has more video-centric features. If you are someone that creates and you control the light, and you are more narrative in your work, and you are dictating what an exposure looks like, this might be the better option, just because of the files that you're gonna get and the latitude you're gonna get after the fact. This is all to say that Fujifilm really competes in that, I would say upper enthusiast tier of video production, right? Where it's not something that's gonna replace a cinema camera, but it's something that could complement a cinema camera and even just be the best camera for now for that independent video producer. All in all, the X-H2s is the most complete Fujifilm camera to date, and I believe it's gonna get better in the months to come. All right, so who is this camera for? If you're asking me, I think it's largely for existing Fujifilm users, existing enthusiasts that are looking for a serious, noticeable upgrade from their existing Fujifilm solution. There are so many upgrades and advancements here that it's not just about the quality of the photo or video, it's someone that's looking to upgrade the overall experience of capturing and move into a bit more of a versatile solution. But there is also a lot here to entice that Nikon, Canon, and even Sony user. That person that isn't quite married to their workflow. Maybe they invested early based on other people's reviews and other people's opinions, but they want something that speaks more to them. They want something that takes advantage of those Fujifilm differentiators, like the film simulations and just how you work and operate this tool. And quite simply, you have something here from Fujifilm that competes in these demanding environments to really quench a lot of those needs. At $2,500 US, the Fujifilm camera is priced to compete with those full frame cameras in that, upper tier. And it does exactly that. It competes. It matches other cameras in certain areas, it slips up in others, and it excels in a surprising few. All of this comes together for this robust solution that, again, it feels like you're getting behind the wheel of a supercar. And because of this camera, I come to sort of the conclusion that when you're investing, things are becoming less about performance and more about preference. And if you ask me, that's a damn big win for Fujifilm. So there you have it. That is my review of the X-H2s. As far as we go, this video is done. So as always, my name's Gajan. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.